Welcome everybody to another NickFit video series. I'm going to continue iterating on the Jund value archetype. We're running a little bit hot today with some 64 card main deck action. So what we're doing here in general is we're executing on a NickFit plan. So we've got our veteran explorers, which, there we go, and Cabal Therapy, so that we can combination those two together to get some basic lands into play. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have very many, if any, so we can abuse some lack of symmetry there. We're going to use all this mana to power out a lot of really nice top-end things. We've got Green Sun Zenith that's going to get a lot of our green creatures, such as Morvets, Nissa Vastwood Seer, which we can have a lot of land drops, so we can flip into the Nissa Sage Animist with some regularity. We've got Reclamation Sage, is something we can go get to blow up an artifact or an enchantment that's causing us issues. Tireless Tracker to start generating some card advantage and then clocking the opponent. We've got Eternal Witness to get it all back, and we're going to come back to the Eternal Witness in a moment. We've also got Marin, who we can generate a lot of value with. We've got Thragtusk, also for value and also to help bolster our life total. We've got the Regisaur Alpha, to give us a little bit of immediate damage if we need to kill, say, like an opposing Jace the Mind Sculptor. And then we've got Carnage Tyrant, which is a very good closer. It tramples over things, and the hexproof means that it's really hard for our opponent to deal with. So those are the things we can get with the Green Sun Zenith. Some of the other things that help dovetail into our game plan is we have some early removal in Fatal Push and Abrupt Decay. And to some amount, also with Direfleet Daredevil, we can use our opponent's removal against them. This is also going to be a useful card to help churn through our deck with the help of our opponent's cantrips like Ponders and Brainstorms. To help further control the board, we've got things like Pernicious Steed and Toxic Deluge to sweep a bunch of things away that our opponent is doing. And then to help kind of control the game state some as well, we've got 3 Kolaghan's Commands and 1 Pulse of Murasa. And the goal of these 2 cards, in general, is going to be to help reuse our Eternal Witness. Most of the time, we're going to want to do it with a Kolaghan's Command, but if we're again, it's the deck, say, like Burn, or something that's going to clock us quickly, we might want to use the Pulse of Murasa to help gain a ton of life. Some of the other things we can do at the top end, we've got 4 Planeswalkers. We have Vraska Relic Seeker, Nissa Vital Force, which is a NickFit mainstay at this point, and Chandra Torch of Defiance. And all of these are going to be aimed at generating more card advantage or generating threats, and generally just trying to do powerful things that are going to start bringing us to an end game. Let's talk about the mana base a little bit. So over here in the mana base, we've got 4 dual lands. We've got Badlands, Bayou, and Taiga. And to get our different colors of mana, we emphasize the Bayou with a 2 of, considering this deck is mostly green and black. Then we have our suite of basics. We've got 5 forests, we've got 2 mountains, and 2 swamps. Those are going to be the things we're fetching off of the Veteran Explorer and off of we have a lot of extra forests because of the Nissa Vastwood Seer, which can go get a basic forest when it comes into play. We also have 8 fetch lands. We've got the Verdant Catacombs and the Wooded Foothills. We use our green-based fetches with our secondary colors because the deck is primarily green. And then we have a couple of utility lands in Phyrexian Tower, which can help sacrifice our Veteran Explorers very easily. And Volrath's Stronghold, which can let us rebuy creatures like Eternal Witness and others. And then some of the last little bits of spice. So like we're trying out the Direfleet Daredevil as one of the big changes here. And we did take out, I'm guessing this is the Eternal Witness slot. We used to have 2, but we're going to try a Journey to Eternity. I'm not really sure if this card's going to be any good, but I want to try it out and see how it works. Alright, if we come over here to our sideboard, So that's it for the main deck. If we come over here to the sideboard, Nic Fit suffers a lot of times from really fast combo decks. So to that end, we've got 3 Thoughtseize and 2 Surgical Extraction, and then Lost Legacy to hopefully try to get our opponents to take their combo pieces early, and we can either use Surgical to take them away, or we can use Surgical Extraction to, say, take their cantrips, slow them down. There's lots of things you can do with Surgical. The Lost Legacy, we're going to try to aim to cast that on turn 2, if at all possible, to take away something that is integral to their combo. So against Elves, we might take like Craterhoof Behemoth. Against something like Show and Tell, we might take their Emeralds or their Gristlebrand's, depending on what we think is important. Sometimes we instead take their Show and Tells or their Sneak Attacks. It all just kind of depends. But usually, to power that out in turn 3, we're going to need to sacrifice a vet probably on the first turn or the second turn with something like a Phyrexian Tower, or we're going to need to have access to probably all 4 of our Deathrite Shamans. And if we're against the blue deck, we might also have options with Carpet of Flowers, since sometimes we take our Veteran Explorers out against some of the decks that run basic islands. Lost Legacy can also come in many other kinds of matchups. Sometimes in the grindier matchups, there might be a key card that we don't want our opponent to have because it's going to help give them long game against us. Against the Miracles deck, that might be something like a Jace the Mind Sculptor, or something like Entreat the Angels, or even possibly something like Search for Azcanta. I generally don't want to hit things like Terminus or Swords to Plowshares because we often have ways to circumvent those sorts of things. Other things we have on our sideboard, we've got a Pulse of Murasa, and this card is to help supplement the recurring Eternal Witness plan. Most of the time, this is going to come in versus a deck that either is trying to grind us a lot, like something like Check Pile, but it will also come in against something that is an extremely aggressive deck to help give us a little extra time. We're also going to bring it in against Reanimator, because if we are able to play this on turn 3, we can gain a bunch of life while returning their reanimation target to their hand, and in response, since it is an instant. Also against Reanimator decks, we've got the Diabolic Edict. This card also is very good against the Merit Lage decks, which are generally bad matchups for us because we're just not fast enough to deal with things, so we have to bring these in. Golgari Charm, very versatile. We're going to bring this in against decks that run True Name Nemesis or something like Death and Taxes, things that have a lot of X1 creatures. There might be some occasional things where we want the Destroy Target Enchantment mode, maybe against a deck that has something like an Energy Field deck maybe. The Regenerate Each Creature mode doesn't come up often, and we're usually not going to sideboard it in for that reason, but if it comes up, it's good to know it exists. Coming back here to the Carpet of Flowers and the Deathrite Shaman. These are in the sideboard mostly to be able to take our Veteran Explorers out and put these cards in. Against something like a Miracles deck, we don't really want to give them extra lands to work with, so we can bring these 4 cards in, completely exchange out our Explorers, and have a way to still ramp while not ramping our opponent at the same time. Against some decks, like a Death and Taxes or Burn, we want to try to cut the Veteran Explorers, and having some Deathrite Shamans to bring in will help against this, but we aren't going to be able to completely replace them. So we might still have 1 to 2 Veteran Explorers left in the deck to green sun for later in the game, or possibly we'll just have to go down on how much ramp we have. That's going to do it for our deck tech. Thanks for tuning in, and go ahead and go to my next video for the first round. Thank you.